Tarot, and in today's video we're going over November predictions. What's going to happen in November? Now sometimes these predictions are more focused due to the request of my spirit guides, but in this one it's kind of whatever floats your boat. This could be about particular personality traits that might pop up, events, money coming your way, things to know about, romantic, friendship, co-workers, things to focus on, notable events to give extra attention, to understand their importance. I mean, whatever is of the most importance or need to know is going to pop up in the reading today, which I'm very excited about. In addition to that, if you would like to support me, I have in the description, I actually have a tip donation thing, but I also have a Patreon where I post a bunch of exclusive content over there. And it goes into anything from guided meditations, which I am absolutely ecstatic to say that people have been vibing and having big psychic and spiritual breakthroughs through these meditations. I'm very happy about that. But in addition to it, I go to the Akashic Records, I get information, I look up the spiritual meaning of the ocean, sacred geometry, I go into, do you really need to cleanse the cards or not? I mean, any question you can think of, we go over. And it's just a fun discussion and community-based environment over there. In addition to that, I posted 2 new videos, and one of those videos is actually about ancestor work, about how to go about working with your ancestors, what does that mean, how does it help, and more details on that. In addition to that, the second video I posted was a story about a recent event that happened to me when I was in a crystal shop. I came in contact with the being that the witch that owns the shop had, and I talk about my experience communicating with them, what that was like, and again talking about that subject that maybe the dark side isn't as it seems, and as we grow as individuals, so do our experiences. So I thought that might be helpful and was just a fun experience. In addition to that, I also have an intuition training course and a tarot training course, which you can find in the description below. In the intuition training course, you learn how to go to the spirit realm and you get to hang out with your spirit guides, but here's the cool part of the course. You learn how the non-physical and physical world overlap quite a bit and how you can use that in your everyday life. And in the tarot training course, of course, you learn how to read tarot right away. You don't it simplifies the process but doesn't lose any of the details. And I'm particularly proud to share all my tips and secrets that I use while I read cards here in that course as well. Now going back to the reading, I got a little cup of happiness here. If you're curious what I'm drinking, I am drinking an Arnold Palmer because I like that. And below we have our 4 groups. We have group number 1, Titanium. Let me show you her. She's very beautiful. We have Rose Quartz. In group number 2, group number 3, we have Rainbow Moonstone. And in group number 4, this is not a specific crystal, it's a bunch of crystals, but tell me this is just not the coolest. So my spirit guide asked me to include it, and I'm happy to, and I think it looks really cool. So anyways, you have your 4 groups in front of us, and think about November. Sort of set the intention in your mind, like close your eyes, set it in the darkness, imagine the idea of November. You could give it a shape or a concept or an idea, and whatever it is, focus on it and say, this is me in November. And declare to yourself, I want to know what happens in November. After you do that, after you set that very clear intention, and you say, show me in the cards, you're going to then pick the group that you feel resonates with that feeling the most. I'm going to give you a moment to do so. Now that you've done that, we can get started with reading the cards with group number 1. Group number 1. Let's look at those November predictions by looking at the cards. We have your Oracle card, Disseminating Moon. Take time to breathe out. We have your Oracle card, Cleaning House Upright. We have your Tarot cards, the Hanged One in reverse, Temperance card upright, Ace of Swords upright. I'm already hearing something about this from my spirit guides, and the Queen of Swords upright. Okay, give me just 1 second to look at all the details and to consult my spirit guides for any other information. Interesting. Okay, so this is almost, how do I say this? Borderline contradictive in nature, but two things still can be true at the same time, even if they sound like they're opposites, is the best way I can put it. So first we're going to start with this, because these 3 cards go together, in the Hanged One in reverse. So this refers to this idea that October was a bit of a slower month for you. But there's a lot of positivity behind this card, because like the Hermit card, where somebody is sort of taking time to self-analyze and look over themselves and learn information before they go out into the world, and then they're more prepared. It's like it was a timing thing. You needed a second before you could go forward into something new. And all that time that just felt like nothing was going on, and maybe you were bored and you were like, am I wasting my time and energy? Why am I not more inspired or motivated, or in order to get more involved in my life or activities or something like that, was sort of an incubating time period. The Hermit card is more inward, and this card is more outward. So everything you were sort of taking in for the month, guess what? That's going to be of value now in November. Now the thing is, this card talks about the idea of getting off the sidelines. You were kind of sitting out for a period of time, and sometimes when people are in this perspective, it can feel like, what's wrong with me? Am I stuck? Blah, blah, blah. But guess what? This is a fantastic card and thing to look back on in the future if you ever come across this again. Because this card talks about the idea of timing. Sometimes it's not the right time, and if you were to force it, let's say it's a relationship. Let's say you wanted to be a little more proactive, maybe it's felt a little boring and you want it to get exciting again, and you try to force it at this time when it wasn't a convenient time, it could feel awkward. Maybe the other person also isn't in the right headspace. And this talks about saying like, hey, when you're both sitting it out, whether it be a project, another person, whatever the situation, it's for the greater good, because when it is time, you're back in the flow. It's perfect for everyone. It's not just solely about you, and you're not actually doing anything wrong. You're actually still very much in the flow of your own personal experiences, because sometimes that flow involves being sitting out. So essentially this talks about this idea of like, so in the future you can look back and go, sometimes you just need to sit and sort of incubate, if you will. So going forward in this into November, this is about you getting involved again, getting motivated, taking everything you've seen and feeling inspired and using it. So definitely during November, while you feel this inspiration, reflect back. Things that seemed really inconsequential or just really quick passing in your vision were actually extremely useful. Did you hear someone reference some sort of digital tool that you can use that you can benefit in your own personal business or creative project? Did you hear somebody's cool creative idea or place to visit that you'd like to now go to, that maybe for a second you were like, oh yeah, that's cool. No, go for it. Go do that thing, whatever it may be. Now, this does also talk about the idea of a new path, a new inspiration, but I do want to be clear here, that doesn't mean ditching and resetting completely the past. So like, let's say, again, going back to a relationship or a project. That doesn't mean you have to start a new project or start a new relationship. It's just this idea that you come at it with a new energy and perspective. But you can still enjoy that same person, whatever you're working towards creatively. You get what I'm saying here. So again, this is sort of like a confidence booster, but paying attention to the details that we've understood and taken in October, and then using it in our benefit in November, because it's the right time. You've got the motivation, you've got the energy, you've got the passion, you're ready to go. However, while this is going on, right before this happens, like there's this, let me just double check it's right before this happens. Yeah, okay, so my spirit guide said it's exactly right before this happens. And that's a little bit of a theme you'll notice over here, that idea of right before this happens. Something to think about for yourself and how you personally function in the universe right now. Because as we change, as we respond to ourselves in the universe differently, so do the signs around us change. So over here, right before, when you're in that sort of hanging out sideline time period, we have the Temperance card. Now, this is you mulling over. We're going to look at the spiritual meaning over this. And in this particular case, I was being told that lion represents the idea of protection. That's what it was. And that eagle over here in this particular case is representing the idea of foresight. Specifically, we're talking about the idea of knowing what you need to do in the future. It's more than being aware of the future. It's being like, this is what I need to prepare for in the future, or sensing it. A good example of this is it can talk about psychic awareness. So we're not solely talking about that. Sometimes you are able to be aware an event is actually happening in the future and how to prepare for it. And sometimes you sense something's going to happen. You're like, maybe I should bring a raincoat. I think it might rain, that type of thing. But this is sort of, when we have the Temperance card, it's sort of like you're weighing your options back and forth. You're thinking, should I have a little bit of this? Can I mix a little bit of that? How can I use both to my benefit? But if you notice, this person isn't going anywhere. They're stuck because there's a contradiction going for in this. And as you can tell, the lion is before you, in front of you, a focus point for you. And the eagle with the foresight is behind you. You're aware of it, you probably should use it, but you're almost putting it in the back burner of your mind. Now, this is an issue because with the protection, it's this idea of wanting it. Maybe you're feeling maybe like in a position where you need to watch your back. My spirit guide said you do need it. I don't want to take it to like too much of a serious note, but feeling that way, you're sensing and your intuition's correct. However, foresight is like somebody, and in this instance we're talking about, in this context, this is someone who's like, you know what, I know I'm protected because as I go forward, I'll sense and know what to do naturally. And you're sort of playing it by ear as you continue to step forward. But you're taking that awareness to know that every time you're stepping forward, you're going to have to regain and regroup and be like, okay, what else do I need? And then you take another step forward. And you're just courageously moving forward. But if you're only focused on protection, you're kind of trapped in this endless circle where you're like, think of that sense idea of like you're building a little fort around you. Well, how are you going to move forward? You can't take your little fort with you. Or you can have really good senses and move forward and anticipate when you need to like take another route, or when you maybe shouldn't talk to a certain person or something like that kind of thing. So this is you looking back and forth in that, and you figuring out, okay, I need to a certain degree trust that everything's going to be okay. I did double check. Your spirit guide said that you are protected, so you're fine. I just want to be clear about that. I want to give you that reassurance. But it's going forward, and remember, this is right before you're like, okay, I'm ready to go. This is you going, you know what? I think I can trust in myself and my ability to understand the universe and what I need and what other people need to go forward and make the right decisions. I don't need to think about it too deeply. I'm going to follow my instincts. If I see certain events coming up, I'll prepare for them and that type of thing. But making that active intention in yourself. And often people don't do this enough. When we say intention, say it out loud. Say it to yourself very clearly. I have the intention that I have foresight. I can trust myself. And you're really telling the universe and declaring it, and you're making that intention to declare to yourself in the universe that going forward, this is the shift, this is the energy, this is where I'm going for it. And that can really change things. So there's a sense of incubation in the beginning of October. You're like, okay, this is the last thing I kind of need before I can really open up and be motivated moving forward. You're aware that you have to sort of let go some of your fears and be proactive and sort of be your own courageous person going forward and trust in yourself. And then that is what cleans you up and moves you forward. Now, speaking of cleaning up house, that's what it specifically is referencing. This is the confirmation card. This is you not only making a decision going forward, but you're cleaning house. You're literally organizing organizing and getting rid of anything that doesn't serve you internally. So you're basically changing yourself in a big way of saying, okay, what holds me back and what moves me forward? And it's just a matter of making a decision. And I do want to be clear here, when people are moving forward in life, trying to build confidence and self-love, whatever, a lot of people think it's an overnight process. Sometimes it is. Sometimes there is a shift in your energy or your understanding, or something really deeply motivates you. But often it's saying to yourself, I'm going to make the decision to love myself, even though maybe you say it and you don't really connect to it initially. It doesn't feel particularly good. You know what I'm saying? And then going off of that day by day, building upon it until one day it clicks, or little examples show up and this mantra you've been telling yourself starts to make a little more sense as time goes by. So this is you saying, you know what? I'm seeing what doesn't work anymore. I'm making an active decision. I'm telling myself in the universe, and then just watching yourself really bloom and head somewhere new and exciting, and you're very self-productive and proactive, and it's just a new fun energy you're going to really like, with a lot of self-love with who you were in October, knowing like you did nothing wrong. You actually were exactly where you needed to be when you needed to be, and hopefully that helps you view yourself in the universe a lot differently, and realizing like everything's truly working out just as it needs to, and you don't have to judge yourself so hard. Now going forward, this is what I meant by that sense of like contradiction. Then we have over here the disseminating moon. So this feeling is very like you're waiting, you're mulling things over, you're cleaning things out. Momentum. Now we're going forward. But simultaneously, while that is happening, there's a separate event happening. So when we talk about this particular card, this is the idea that something has peaked because of the full moon. So this could be anything. This could be maybe things were really good in a relationship, really good with your flow, with your career, literally anything essentially. Sorry about that interruption. Continuing on. So this talks about this idea in the full moon. The full moon is like the peak of something. So we can have a relationship's going really well, you're in the flow with work, whatever that is. But the disseminating moon is saying, because it's hit its peak, now it's time to regroup and kind of like think about what you want to do going forward. This isn't necessarily a negative thing, but it is something to be aware of so you don't view a situation negatively. Again, this is a separate circumstance than these vibes over here. So again, maybe this over here represents this idea of like a project or something you've sort of been creatively stunted on. But meanwhile, with your love life, maybe you've just been flourishing or something like that, and you've been really vibing with someone. So you're going to notice this peak, and then suddenly it's kind of like, ooh, what's happening? Are they losing interest? Are we not as interested in each other? Or maybe everything's great, but you're just like, it isn't the same sort of rise it once was when we first met, or something like that, or whatever the circumstance is. Now, that doesn't mean, it's not a comment on the full moon situation we're talking about. It's saying that because it's peaked, it's now to pull back. You can't just keep riding that roller coaster of one perspective, getting lost in it, sort of coming back and finding yourself. And I don't want to say can't, we'll just say it's about having that balance in life between enjoying the moment and then coming back to yourself and saying, what do I want? What do I want going forward, and stuff like that. But also, this is a fantastic confirmation card, because sometimes when we experience things in life, we can view them much more intensely than they really are. And this is one of the reasons why I love tarot so much, because tarot can forewarn about stuff that could be seen as negative, or what does this mean? And really everything's fine. So again, it's this peak of something in November, and then suddenly you notice it's sort of stalling, or not what it was. And before you get in your head and you think, what's happening? What does it mean? Is this negative? Are we losing interest in each other? What's going on? Everything's fine. You're going to just stop for a moment and go, I'm being given an opportunity to not be so distracted by the constant excitement of what's next and new with this thing that's been building up. And I'm going to say, now that I've enjoyed this, What would I like going forward? So again, using that example we had, maybe you want to pause and go, this is great, but going forward, if I wanted something more long-term, what would I like out of that circumstance? What do I want to tell the universe and potentially them what I would like out of it? Who am I as a person? This is lovely, and where would I like it to continue to go? So again, not a negative thing. It's actually a great notice, sort of not warning, but like a great forewarning of like, hey, you might see it like this. Everything's cool. This is a time to stop and think. And remember, again, it's like we talked about with the intention over here. Setting intentions is not a joke. It is so extremely helpful in changing things in your life, but you can't be lackadaisical about it. You have to be very like, universe, I'm talking to you. Hey, inner self. Hey, spirit guides, whatever you're vibing with. And you say, hey, this is what I would like going forward. So you're stopping, you're thinking about it, and then you're declaring to the universe, like, I think I'd like this going forward. And remember, we don't have to get too deep about it. Let's say, again, that example, again, you just met someone. You don't have to think about your whole future with them. You can just be like, well, going forward, I'd really like to have someone I could depend on. So if I really needed someone to call them, they could be that person. That would be really nice going forward. And that could be just like a simple request you put out there. Or I'd like to continue doing these fun things as not just a new experience that we're having together, but continuing going forward. That's something I would like to have. Always new fun things we're doing. Looking for the fun in life. That's a good example of regrouping, putting that intention out there, taking that break, taking that second before moving forward. Anyways, so going forward, so it's kind of funny because this is almost like a different event and sort of like sitting and then building, and this one's building and then sitting for a second. It's funny how life really does balance itself out. Again, two separate things. Now over here in the Ace of Swords upright, my spirit guide was telling me that you're going to lose something and then you're going to find something. I asked if this thing you're going to lose in November is really important. Then my spirit guide just said, you're going to be pretty annoyed when you lose it. So we're just going to keep it at that. Now, this is the important thing though, and what, again, we talk about that learning process over here. You're learning again over here. We talk about that epiphany you have, that figuring things out over here right before, and then sort of this break in your sort of change of habits and daily experience. Same thing over here. So you're going to lose something, and what you're going to do is you're going to have this sort of clarity within yourself. Once you have this sort of like inner alignment, like, yeah, I'm checking in with myself. I'm aware of maybe my goals. Whatever that means to you. I'm aware of who I am. I'm admitting my own feelings to myself. Whatever that may be, wherever you're at in life. But there's a sense of like deep clarity within yourself, and then, magically, you find the object. Now, here's the important thing. Sometimes this happens in life in order, this is like a spiritual thing. Sometimes it's to force yourself to reconnect and realize that the way we're thinking and perceiving ourselves affects the world around us. So it's like when you're losing that object, it's representing this idea of like you're losing, I don't want to say like you're losing yourself, that's a little bit too dramatic of a term. We're more just saying like you've lost focus of yourself, and then you're focusing on yourself again. You're having this sense of connection with yourself, whether that be through meditation, an epiphany, a statement, checking in with yourself again, which we talked about. There's a lot of checking in this month. Once you check in and you're like, oh, I'm reconnected to me in that kind of way, boom, the object is found. You found yourself. You found the object. So don't be surprised if you ever come forward in the future. That might be a way you're communicating with yourself when living life. You're like, why did I lose something? Before you sort of get all freaked out, take a second and go, do I need to potentially take a second to reconnect and then find it, and it's a beautiful everything coming together type of thing. But that will help you find the object, because apparently it's going to be annoying when you first initially lose it. But you will find it in November, I'm very happy to say. And then last but not least, we have Queen of Swords. Now, this does represent a career-related thing, and I'm told it represents a woman. Now, this is why reading the cards is so interesting. And remember, everyone's got a different way of reading the cards. Everybody's version is valid. There's so many different ways you can read the cards. But traditionally, when it comes to something like a queen, it would represent an older woman. But I read my cards a lot more openly, and I have more of a wider inner discussion with my spirit guides and myself and the universe. And so I said, is it an older woman? And I was told it's actually, in fact, a younger woman. I was told they would be in their 20s. Only 20s or early 20s? Only 20s. Okay, so somewhere in the 20s, anywhere. In their 20s, and they are going to be sort of in your way. Now, this is how it was described as me. They're good at their job, but they're a bit of a gatekeeper of their job. That sometimes happens when people don't want someone to go above them. It's like, how do I say this? They're not malicious, and they're not really like focused on you and trying to bring you down. It's not a personal thing. It's just that where you would like to go to move up, or maybe have better activities or jobs or something to do within your job itself, they're basically the blockage of that, because they are good at what they do and they don't want anyone else to take their spot. Now, going forward, my spirit guide said that the decision of what to do next is really up to you. This is not the worst thing in the world. Again, it's not personal there, but it is honest that they are sort of in the way of your potential going forward. And my spirit guide said that, like, essentially you could tough it out and eventually move forward, or you could say, you know what? I don't want to really go through that unnecessary hard work, because it's not always necessary to do that, and go and find something you're more vibe with. Go get a different job. Go to get in a different circumstance where this person isn't in your way. It's really sort of a make or break type of moment, very much like this other stuff we spoke about. Because you could theoretically stay, and you would have to say to yourself, am I saying to myself and the universe, I'm okay with things being more difficult for myself? And it doesn't necessarily mean it has to mean that, but that is a possibility you're saying to yourself and the universe, and you're saying that you want more of that, potentially. Or you could be saying to yourself, you know what? Nothing can sort of be seen as a blockage to me. I don't care. This is the thing I want. This is the position I want. I will get through this. I'm tough and I'm strong, and I'm proving that to myself. Or you could decide, you know what? I want things to be easier. Or the universe is giving me sort of an opportunity. I don't really love this job or position. I'd like either a totally new career path, or just another place in another situation, maybe one that pays more or is more fun or low key, whatever it is your heart's desire. But whatever it is, you can interpret that as you may, but you are being told there is a gatekeeping. From there, you then make that decision. So overall, definitely a really cool, very contemplative November, and a lot of reassurance over where you've been, where you go, when things happen. Everything's actually going great. Nothing's negative here. But by understanding these little things, you can work with the universe to your advantage more, and also be a lot less judgmental of yourself and realize the bigger picture going on and be a part of it. So I hope you enjoyed this reading. I hope it gave you a little cup of happiness. Please leave a comment, a like, subscribe, hit that notification bell. It helps out like you would not believe. I am wishing you the best. I look forward to seeing you in the next one. And let's get ready for group number 2. Group number 2. To skadoo. Let's look at your November predictions. What's going to happen in November by looking at the cards. We have your Moon Oracle card, Gibbous Moon. You're close to achieving your goal, but this card means more than just that. We have your... This is Spirit of Place Oracle card upright. This is a fantastic pairing. I'm very excited to get into this. I already know what this is about. We have your Four of Swords upright tarot card, which I'm already hearing my spirit guide talk about. We have the Death card in reverse, Temperance card in reverse, and Four of Cups upright. In reverse, upright. Give me one moment to look at the details of these cards and consult my spirit guides. My spirit guide's so cute. They're like, you're good to go. Okay, let's get started. First, we're going to start with these two pairings. So yes, the gibbous moon is awesome. It's this idea that you're right there. You're on the cusp. You're about to receive this thing you want. I want to be clear here. This would be something I was consulting my spirit guide. They said this is something you've been wanting for some time now. So it's something that regularly goes through your thought process. Like an example is, let's say you've really been wanting more money. So you'll think when you go to buy something, oh man, if I had more money, I'd also get this. Oh, that sounds really nice if I had more money. Maybe you want to get a new place and you're thinking about that idea of like, oh, I'd like to get this thing or do this, but if only I had the space or this circumstance or whatever, or finding love, whatever it may be. It's something you kind of mull over quite often. So yes, you might want many things in your lifetime, but it's, or in this like time period, but it's like from October into November, you've been thinking about it quite a bit. Now, you're on the cusp, you're about to receive it, but we're particularly focused on the idea of what that means right before it. And that is where these two cards come to play. This card talks about the idea of making room for it. So an example would be, so again, you're going to move. You might think about packing some stuff up, getting some stuff donated and cleared out in order to be more conveniently be able to go for the switch. Or maybe when it comes to finding a partner, maybe there's a couple people you've been talking to just casually, and you know you're not really into any of them. None of them are really, you already know like it's not going to go anywhere. Now might be a good time to kind of clear out those pathways with those people. Again, this is your choice. I'm not saying this is what to do. I'm just saying this is a possibility in order so that when that person comes in, it's a lot more convenient and you're not then having to sort of like go through, okay, now I got to organize, letting everyone know I'm not available anymore. I'm with this person type of thing. Whatever, you choose in your the situation. But in addition to making choices in order to make yourself that much more available for receiving, we talk about this at great length because remember, manifesting is important, but no one ever talks about receiving. If you're not in a position to receive, that's why a lot of people go, why am I not successfully then manifesting? You probably are manifesting great, but you got to be in a position to receive. And that really just depends circumstance to circumstance, what you need to do in order to do that. In this case, we talk about making room. Over here, in addition to that, though, we have the Spirit of Place Oracle card, which talks about this idea that whatever you're asking for is within itself the answer of the overarching concept. So again, an example. Let's say you've been struggling in life. So you'd probably want to relax and find a chill spot because you're saying, this is like bothering me, this is bothering me. Maybe your question is like, I'd like to be free of this concept. And within itself, part of the answer is taking finding space in your life to find that relaxation away from that circumstance. Or maybe, again, we talk about that idea of finding another person. Maybe it's not just about finding them, but embodying that love within yourself in order to sort of tell the universe, like, I'm ready, I'm in that headspace, I'm literally my own beacon. I made a whole video in my Spiritual Talks segment of this channel that you can find a video on. It talks about crystals. And interestingly enough, crystals they're born with like a particular frequency. And their entire makeup becomes an emulation of them sort of saying to the universe, this is the frequency I'm looking for. So that frequency has a color and a pattern and a shape and a texture and everything. And so they're sort of reflecting what they feel they will eventually vibe with. And sort of through trial and error, they figure that out. So you're becoming your own crystal, your own frequency, and you're putting it out there like, I am it, so therefore it is naturally around me. You get what I'm saying? But again, the concept is, what is the question you're asking? What is it you're looking for? And then essentially, what is the overarching theme? And then in itself is the answer. So a combination of that answer mixed with making room, you're basically making yourself in a position to receive because you've been doing everything right, but we're kind of helping you get to that final finishing spot in order to make it happen. Let me just double check though with my spirit guide if you will then receive it in November or if it's a December thing. It's a December thing for everyone, I was told. Okay. So November is your prep month. You're getting excited. It's like Christmas or Hanukkah or whatever you celebrate. It's kind of like going, okay, I'm about to get it. It's about to happen. I am pumped. It's gonna happen. And you know it's happening anyways, and you're getting your preparations ready in order to receive it. Now going on, we have the Four of Swords, and I love this for you with the Death card in reverse. My spirit guide said this is actually not about the idea of like taking a break or like being overworked or something like that. It's actually this idea that, so when we have this card in reverse, whether it be upright or reverse, this card refers to this idea that you're going to go through this huge life-changing shift within yourself. You'll be totally changing. It's a true rebirth. You're in that, like, you're a new person, your metamorphosis. But when this card pops up, it's sort of saying, like, it's unstoppable. It's happening. There's a combination of, like, you could say destiny, or you've prepped yourself into this position where it's happening no matter what. But sometimes when we're in that process of changing, there can be sort of a stalling or a slowing down, accidentally, a hiccup. Now, that doesn't mean we're ruining the process of us changing for the better. It just means we're sort of like a little bit in our own way temporarily. And so when it's in reverse, this card is saying, like, you got to go back to something and deal with it in order to then finish this change, because it's happening whether you want it or not. But often I find in this circumstance, and this is not to, I don't want to like worry or anything like that. That's not the energy or headspace around this situation or in particular. But it's like, if you keep stalling it, you can find that you feel out of flow, or things feel a little off in your life, or things maybe aren't going the best around you. And it's sort of the universe saying, like, girl, person, boy, like, we're moving forward. You can't stop this. You got to get on or, deal with this, essentially. So what is that going back in order to make this big positive shift happen for you in November? So in the Four of Swords, my spirit guide was saying that you actually don't need to work as hard as you think you need to in order to then receive the things you want. And this is a mindset. This is a really interesting mindset that sometimes people get really trained into. They think, oh, I have to work hard. I'm not allowed to receive anything unless I've done X amount of work, or I've done something X amount of years, or I'm undeserving unless I've paid my dues in this kind of way. And that's actually a lie that we're sort of all kind of pulled into. You don't have to believe that. That doesn't have to be the case for you. That doesn't actually make any sense at all. If you even look at a bunch of celebrities who've had great success, a lot of them really had great success at a very young age. They maybe worked a few months, 2 years, and then suddenly they had more money and acclaim and easier time in life with not the, you probably have been working 5, 10, 20 years. You just don't need to have that mantra for yourself, essentially. So remember, this is something you're practicing in order to then allow this full change to then continue. So you're benefiting from both this mindset, but also from the positivity of the change. And remember, when we change in this really big way, so do the circumstance around us. This is when it's easier to manifest. This is when we feel more connected to ourselves. This is when we're more empowered. This is what people are sort of looking for, that main character energy. Guess what? You're the main character, and it's your time to shine. It's your trilogy, so to speak, coming out. But remember, this is something you have to exercise regularly. So when you find yourself saying like, oh yeah, I hope maybe in time, that's creating this idea again of needing to work hard. You don't need to do that. We're again focusing on that concept and idea of being like, you know what? No. Maybe it could happen tomorrow, and I'm open to that. Maybe I could receive what I want right now. Or maybe you say to yourself, I think I've done enough. I'm ready to have everything I want. I think it should be easy. In fact, I think there's a smarter way of doing this. That kind of thing. And you want to really catch yourself in how you speak about yourself and how you interact with the world, because you are allowed to have everything, and it is allowed to be fun and easy, and you can change your reality to be what you want it to be. But it does start with a mindset and how you speak into existence. So this is both you being aware of taking on this mindset, but then actively practicing it. And then from practicing it, You are learning something essentially that you needed to learn in order to move forward. And then it's this really fantastic, huge change in your life for the better. And that is super exciting. So it's like practicality mixed with like a big surprise. Now, moving forward, these two cards go together with the Temperance card in reverse and the Four of Cups upright. Four of Cups upright actually has a different sort of connotation in this case, because normally it represents this idea of like boredom, apathy, nothing really interesting you, but this is actually talking about neutrality in a positive way when we talk about this. So I was told in the Temperance card in reverse, there is sort of not necessarily an imbalance in November, but an overwhelming feeling from things feeling sort of overly stimulated. So what does that mean exactly? So when we think of the imagery of the Temperance card, normally we see someone with two cups and they're like balancing out some sort of liquid of some kind. But the concept around it is different than something like the Two of Cups or the Justice card with the scales and everything like that. It's not about balancing two things. The Temperance card is actually like a bigger scope. Usually it's this idea of balancing out like 8 different cups. You know what I mean? And you're trying to find the perfect amount for each cup and the perfect sort of whatever needs to go in the cup, and it's like a balancing act on like a bigger, larger scale. And let's be real, that is how life is. You know, a little bit of attention here, a little bit of focus there, maybe more so over here than over there. But in your particular case, it can feel a little off. I don't even want to say little off. That's not necessarily the word. It's just that some of the things in your life will be so exciting in November. So it is a positive thing, but it can almost like call too much of your attention and then make you feel overwhelmed that something feels like you're not able to successfully balance it because these things are calling your attention so much that it makes maybe other things more distracting or harder to do. Or you're like concerned you're giving too much attention somewhere else because it keeps calling your attention. And my spirit guide said, so first of all, nothing's imbalanced. Yay, we love that. But the way to handle it when you're feeling that is you have to be aware you're just getting too excited, essentially. And you want to take on the Four of Cups mindset, which is a neutrality. So you're going to sort of calm yourself down, take a moment, breathe, count to 10. And you're going to instead view it not as this exciting, exhilarating, like, oh, look over here type of thing. You're going to have to take on a neutral mindset. Pretend you're a neutral person. Be like, yep, cool. Pretend it's a carnival. Yep, cool, it's a carnival. Whatever. I see it. And then be able to reorganize what you were doing, where your attention goes. Again, we're not trying to suppress your excitement or happiness. It's just to sort of get a sense of roping in and feel like you're more in control of all the multitasking you're doing. Let me check. It sounds like you're going to have a busy month. Interesting. Very busy. No wonder you want to take on such a not hard mindset, because you can be busy, yet it can all be easy and effortless. So remember, you're going to make space. You're going to think of what are you asking? That then it itself is the answer. Practice those things in order to prep to receive. You're taking on a different mindset. You're practicing that mindset in order for this big change that will change a lot of other things going forward. Yay. And then when you start to feel like you have all these different things going on, remember, you're not imbalanced. You're just kind of overly excited in some of those areas, and you just need to redirect your attention by taking a more neutral approach for certain time periods in order to gain control over it, then move forward. So overall, a pretty exhilarating, changing November for you. Very exciting. I hope you enjoyed this reading as much as I enjoyed reading the cards. Please leave a like, a comment, subscribe, hit that notification bell. It means the world to me. I'm wishing you the best. I look forward to seeing you next one. And let's get ready for group number 3. Group number 3. Let's find out your November predictions. What's going to happen in November by looking at the cards. Your moon oracle card is look at the bigger picture, full moon in Sagittarius, and we're going to go into more details into that. Your next oracle card is Dragon Slayer in reverse. Those are most likely heavily associated with each other, but I will, as per usual, double check. Your tarot cards are 7 in wands in reverse The Empress in reverse. Okay, this is definitely painting a picture. Okay, the Chariot in reverse. And the Seven of Cups upright. Okay, so this, man, this is so on the nose. This is exactly why I cannot express to you how much I love tarot and how much it positively changed my life. So do the best you can when you're enjoying readings, whether here or if you're doing them for yourself, to do the best you can not to give in to fear. Because this is why I love tarot so much. We foresee things in order to change things. So we don't need to go through things because we're already aware, like we pre-learn the lesson. Don't we love that? We love that. So it's okay if we see something that initially makes us uncomfortable because we can change it. And we love that. So just give me 1 minute to look at the details of these cards. And I also want to consult my spirit guides for these cards over here. 1 second. So just give me a moment. Okay. Let us get into this. Not only are these two associated, these 4 are associated. This is sort of the, I don't want to say aftermath, but in consequence to this. And there's some subtext of what to do and where to go from here. So these 2 cards, let's go give a brief view of both of them and show how they interlocked. So in the full moon in Sagittarius, when we talk about looking at the bigger picture, this is about not only looking at the situation as a whole, but your part that you play within it. So you're a part of this bigger picture. So sometimes it's about looking at the way you're viewing the situation and realizing you're getting a little too lost in the details of everything. And it's making you focus on all these little tiny pieces and stuff like that. But in reality, you're not seeing well, everything's okay, or look over here, this is actually more important, because you're focusing over here. Because again, you need to look at the bigger picture. Or, and this is actually what my spirit guide said is more of the focus for you in this circumstance, is the idea of, are you all talk and no action? So a good example of this is, let's say you're working on a project and things aren't going your way. You order some stuff and it doesn't arrive in time, or you try out a new technique and it doesn't work out. Maybe you try to forge a new friendship with a coworker and it just doesn't happen, so it makes work a little more difficult. And so it's this idea that you keep saying, well, I know what to do, or I saw this coming. And it's okay, well, you're saying these things and you're aware of what to do, but are you aware that because you're not making any decisions, because you're not being proactive, this is why the situation's not changing? It's sort of waiting on you to make that change. But again, you have to be self-aware, look at the bigger picture, look how you're being involved. Now, this is super important when we look over here in Dragon's Lair Oracle card up in reverse. So this is this idea that you're moving towards something bad. And there's red flags, and you are able to see them. You can foresee them, just like that example we were saying. But this card also is saying, you do not need to learn this lesson in life. This is not drama you need. You are allowed to move on and pay attention to those instincts. Because guess what? Your instincts, your intuition, they're working fantastic. And yet, this card says, you're moving closer and closer and closer. And it's sort of like a loving card to say, wake up! You don't need this at all in your life. So this is how the 2 are associated. We have you consciously aware in November that there's something you really don't need to be a part of or experience. Remember, this could be something like a not great relationship, friendship, or romantic. This could be maybe a work opportunity that you just feel off about. You're able to sense and see that it isn't a good scenario. But again, and you express to others, I see it, I sense it. But it's sort of saying, yes, but if you don't do anything about it and aren't aware of the role you play in it, you're sort of just moving closer and closer and closer to that dragon's lair, and you really don't need to do that. Now, moving on, we have a byproduct going on over here. So in the Seven of Wands in reverse, this is sort of you laying down, not putting up any sort of, think of the Seven of Wands in upright more of like a can-do, like standing your ground, speaking up for yourself, being like, this is how I'd like things to go type of thing. And in reverse, you're sort of, passive, letting it just happen, letting it see how it works out. And in this particular case, in this particular scenario, in order to pull yourself away from it, you need to speak up and say no. You need to speak up and say, I don't want this, or I see this, or no, I don't want this, or no, this isn't working out for me, or I see how you're treating me, I'm good, I'm aware that this situation with you isn't going to change, I'm aware of what type of person you are, I'm going to have to back away from this scenario. But again, because of we have these things going on, initially there's this a concept that could be, this is like a potential. Remember, we're seeing things in order to not go through them. So this is the sort of laying down, letting it happen. And guess what that causes? The Empress in reverse. Now she's got two scenarios going on here that are important I want you to pay attention to. When she's upright, she is an abundant queen. Oh my goodness. She takes one step forward and she doesn't have to lift a finger and a bunch of daisies blossom underneath her feet. She is constantly filled with life and everything sort of blooms and benefits around her. When we have the Empress card in upright, and remember, oftentimes when we have in reverse, it's like the subtext that you are upright, and sometimes when we go towards situations that are not good at us, it's sort of like we're actually powerful people, we're not feeling ourselves right now, so because we're not feeling ourselves, it's getting reflected in our sort of situations and actions around us, you know what I'm saying? But going back over here, when she is upright, she usually has a lot of positivity all over her life. People tend to notice her, they're excited and have lovely conversations with her, she tends to get free stuff, things just work out for her, she gets the last thing, very positive interaction. But in reverse, this is someone who doesn't feel that way about themselves. They do not have that self-love or belief that they can. It's the subtext that you do have it. It's there. You're just not, proactively tuning into it. And you're sort of waiting around for it to naturally happen. But you have to take ownership of your own sort of inner power in order to make it burst and out there and utilize it to its fullness. Again, people who usually have a very strong inner light tend to attract this stuff, and this is sort of your warning sign from the universe to say, like, you know how like you have an inner compass knowing you're heading in the right direction? There's also an inner compass to go, don't go in this direction. And this is sort of being drawn to you because you're not taking in enough of that inner sort of self-love and being like, you know what, I can do this type of thing. Now, I want to add off this in 1 second, but the other thing that she is, the other particular about her is when, unfortunately, she does feel without, it can cause this, and please excuse me for what I'm about to say, because the term neediness is not how I would define you, but I just cannot think of another word off the top of my head. It's this feeling of like, not just needing love or attention or needing sort of positive reinforcement, but almost in a form of a desperation where when you get it, it doesn't feel like enough. Again, this is not to be an insulting term in this case and scenario. It's just this feeling where you're like, I can't help but go towards this direction because while there might be warning signs that it's not great, in other ways, it's giving me attention that I think I could get, that I feel I need, because what I really need, I'm not getting right now. But here's the thing, looking at the bigger picture, you're feeling without, and you're going towards a situation which is without. And so what do we do here? First off, we get happy that we could foresee this in November because we don't need to go through this. You don't need to go through this. Your instincts are going great. You have this hidden power within. What you're going to do is you're going to really tap into your inner power. I highly recommend, I actually have on my Patreon a bunch of guided meditations like tapping into your inner being and your inner light and stuff like that. But remember, we have to start somewhere. So just the act of like taking a moment to feel cute in the morning. Do you like the way you're dressing or whatever it is? Don't overtly judge yourself or anything like that. Sometimes it starts very simple, just being excited about the outfit you chose that day. Then it's about acknowledging that like, what is the most positive thing in your life? Maybe that did work out easier than you think, or maybe even think of not so long ago positive achievements or things that happened in your life, very small, like they were about to close a store and you got there last. You ended up having enough time to go for a walk. Wasn't that so easy? People were so nice to you when you went and hung out with a group of new people last. Any sort of win or sense of like, look how easy that happened for you, look how things just work your way, and repeating these things to yourself and saying them and acknowledging them, and even declaring to the universe like, you know what, I'm open to good things happening to me. I'm open to being enough. And sometimes when it comes to somebody who has a very strong inner being, this intensely strong, sometimes you can do a lot by just getting out of your way. How do we get out of our way? Not being judgmental. So anytime you sort of put yourself down like a little microaggression, or you're near someone that's like that, you're going to remove them and you're going to remove those thoughts from yourself. You don't necessarily have to replace it with something super positive if you don't feel like that's where you're like at in your life. But just by like getting out of your way, giving yourself a couple days to breathe, this is when you start to find that spark. You start to see examples around your environment around you reflecting that inner light of yours is shining, and you don't get too hard on yourself if you don't immediately see it or see it in every single aspect of your life. Again, that would be a judgmental quality of putting too much expectation on yourself. But again, you being proactive, you're seeing the bigger picture of where you're going towards and what you could do about it. You're being proactive of saying, no, I don't want this. And you're giving more time and attention towards what you really want and need. You think you could get it here, but you can actually give it to yourself right now. Because here's the cool thing when it comes to the Empress in reverse. You already have it. You just need to realize you have it and then enjoy having it. So that's going to be your focus in November. And guess what? We can just avoid all of this. We're going to avoid it. You're going to have a fantastic November and feel so beautiful and wonderful inside and out like you already are. And who doesn't love that? Now going forward, two other things. This is super on the nose, the Chariot in reverse. My spirit guide said you want to get your car checked out as soon as possible. Just straight up. You're going to go get as soon as you watch this reading, you're going to go take your car in and you're going to say, hey, is there anything going on with it? Is there anything I need to be aware about? Because you're basically going to save yourself the annoyance of being in a annoying, difficult position of, like maybe your car breaks down or you get a flat or something like that. And you're going to get out of that scenario and basically avoid it by being able to take it in early, ask them if there's anything going on. You get it checked out. They easily go, oh yeah, we're going to just do this. And then there you go. You took care of it in a much more leisurely way. Most places where you can get your car done have coffee. So you can go have a coffee, you can go relax. It's not a big deal. We're looking for things to save yourself the grief. But notice that real life things, again, this is very similar to my intuition training course. Something like this is talking about this idea of momentum. The Chariot's this idea in metaphor by its representation alone, momentum, not unlike your vehicle. But as you're moving forward and you're whatever, sometimes things can sort of get in the way, but we can do something about it. You're doing it here and you're doing it there. You're doing it metaphorically or like emotionally, and you're doing it physically too. You're telling the universe, nothing's going to stop me. And we love that. Let's keep that momentum going. Because remember, the Empress is a very momentous type of personality. She keeps growing. Nothing can stop her. She's abundant infinitely. Now, last but not least, we have the Seven of Cups upright. Now, this is about this idea of you feeling really spread apart by a bunch of different situations in your life. And the way my spirit guide was describing it and showing it to me is like each cup is representing, rather than what the traditional meaning would be of this card, which talks about opportunity, it's more like maybe over here you're playing a sport. Over here, you're working on work, or maybe you're getting a degree or something like that. Over here, you're taking care of your family. Over here, you're working on a new project or idea. Over here, you're starting, maybe you're creating a new business for yourself. There's like a bunch of different things popping on everywhere. And there's a little piece, this is how my spirit guide described it, there's a little piece of yourself in each single part of it. But because these things feel very separated, it feels like you are separated. So imagine yourself like a body, right? And your hands over here, your shoulders over here. It feels discombobulating. So how can we solve that? Because it's great that you have all these different interests and you have all these things going on in your life in November, but you want to feel like, whole as a person in order not only to do the best job you can to enjoy all these things, but it feels better. So my spirit guide said you want to bring all of these things together and have them overlapped with one another. So again, maybe you're going to get your, whoever maybe you're close to, whether this be your partner or whatever, you're going to get them involved and tell them about your new business. And then maybe your new business reflects some of your hobbies and interests. And then maybe in your hobbies and interests, you have a little bit of reflection about your work and so on and so forth. And you're letting each thing melt into the other one in order to bring that sort of piece of you everywhere all together, and they're going to all benefit one another. But the main thing is, I love when these things pop up in tarot, because often in life when people are asking for like what it is that they want and need, they think it's like always like physical concepts. And I'm not saying we don't want those things and aren't moving towards those goals like money and love and stuff like that. But sometimes it's the unusual things you're not quite able to put into words that you're like, I feel off. And you don't realize how over time that feeling offness adds up into other aspects of your life. And so it pops up, we talk about it, boom, 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 it's all good. So I love this for you. I'm very excited for you because yes, we talked about some difficult things initially, but don't worry. Basically, you're amazing and you're just tapping into that amazingness and you're actively being conscious and proactive and walking away from a circumstance you won't then need to go through. You're going to be taking care of your car and you're going to be actively, remember, when we talk about being proactive, actively interweaving these different facets of your life into one another in order to feel this sense of wholeness. Not unlike what you're going through here. See how it's all beautifully reflective? I love life. I love the universe. I love how it all seems to come together as a perfect puzzle every time. And did I mention I love tarot? Anyways, I hope you enjoyed this reading. Oh, did I bump the camera? I hope you enjoyed this reading. If you did, please leave a like, a comment, subscribe, hit that notification bell. It helps out like you would not believe. I am wishing you the best. I look forward to seeing the next one. And let's get ready for our final group. Group number 4. Group number 4, let's look at your November predictions and what's going to happen in November by looking at the cards. We have your Moon Oracle card. Full moon eclipse, conclusions are within reach. That actually has greater subtext. Then we have your other Oracle card, Magic Prayer. Your tarot cards are, I'm already hearing something about these two from my spirit guides, Queen of Swords in reverse, Ace of Wands, upright, Eight of Swords in reverse, and the Strength card in reverse. Yeah. Okay, give me 1 second. Let me look at the details of these cards and consult my spirit guides, and I'll be with you in one moment. I love this. I really love this. Okay, so let's get started. First off, this is exactly why when we're looking at these cards, I love consulting my spirit guides, because the full moon and eclipse has a little bit of a negative connotation. But I'm happy to report my spirit guide said this is not the case. So this card specifically talks about the idea that something is about to peak. Something's about to happen, like a build-up type of concept. Something you've been striving for, wanting, working towards, whatever. And it's sort of like you've already made a contract with your soul. Fun fact, those are actually called karmic contracts, and you can actually see them, and they're in the Akashic Records. It's a whole thing. You can change them. Not everything is predestined. There's lots of options. That's a whole different conversation for another day. I have a lot of information on that over on my Patreon. But going back to what we're talking about, normally this card talks about this idea that like you've sort of made this deal with yourself and it's going to play out the way it's going to play out, and all you can do is sort of like move out of the way, let it happen, know you're learning a lesson. But I'm happy to report, with a combination of the confirmation card of the magic prayer and also my spirit guide, they said this is more of a positive thing happening. However, it's still that idea of moving out of the way and trusting the universe. You're going to find that's a theme that keeps popping up in these other separate scenarios. And that's very much your theme of November, is sort of sitting back, knowing that it's going to work out the way it's going to work out, and having trust along the way. And that means that a good example is, let's say you really wished you were going to get this opportunity. And this opportunity initially is shown to you that all the other slots are taken, you're not going to get the opportunity. But still trusting that even though it looks like all the slots are taken, somehow you're going to get another version or way or path of getting into that opportunity. You're still going to get it. You're not going to see it as the doors shut, so to speak. So first, it's this idea that it's in process. It's about to happen. It's working towards you, but you're going to, or you're working towards it. It's about to happen. It's going to peak. But you're going to have to sort of have a certain level of trust and release control and believe, even when it seems like things are working out in a way you don't quite understand, that it's a part of the process and it's adding up to the greater good. But this is really fun fact. I highly recommend people look back at events in their life. You'll realize in time that when things work out certain ways, you either learn something or they needed to work out, because maybe if it worked out a different way, that would have caused you more, made you more anxious, and in another way, it would have been more inconvenient. So it's all working out, and just still trusting and believing it's working out in your favor, because it is. But in addition to that, I love the Magic Prayer Oracle card, because this is sort of a comfort while you're waiting in that process. Because like I said, in that example, if it initially seems like the opportunity isn't available to you anymore, your brain might go, it didn't work out. It's not happening. I thought it was going to happen. And you need to sort of have that inner trust of like, nope, something else will work itself out. It'll be a little bit different, but I'm still going to get it. So that's where we get with this card. This card is about, again, same concept, trusting the universe, knowing that your wishes are actually being answered. Again, very positive, but talking about the idea that now is a really good time to find that inner power and connection consciously to that inner power in order to feel comfortable in between while things are working themselves out. But also, you're essentially like heightening up your inner beacon, so to speak. And the more you're a stronger beacon, the more going forward you'll be able to attract more, manifest more, receive more. But here's the big one that a lot of people don't talk about. Be self-aware of what's happening. One day, and I am telling you this, and this is why I highly recommend both my intuition training course and the processes I go talk about over there that I still practice to this day, but I talk about working with tarot, and I have my tarot training course if you'd like. But when you start to become more involved with the whys, the whats, the hows, soon it just doesn't feel like life is so much happening to you, but you see what's happening, and you can not only change things to your advantage, but when things are happening, they feel more joyous, and you're like, that did really work out in my advantage, and now I'm more aware of why that is the case. So you tapping into that, you can do that through meditation. Meditation is probably your best, connection. You could do it by being really just joyous and happy and doing something that makes you absolutely happy, not zoned out, not tuned out. You know, when we really like a TV show, but we watch it so much, we kind of like aren't there anymore. Not that way, but really setting that intention. And again, I have over on my Patreon guided meditations to connecting to your inner self. Anything where you're consciously saying and setting that intention before you go into focus and going, I am going to focus on my inner self. And the more I focus on it, the more it's going to grow. And the more it grows, the more I will feel it in time. And I will be patient that it might take a second for it to all kick in, but I'm here for it and it's happening. And really just every day setting that intention for yourself that like you're already fantastic, you're connecting to that, you're feeling it within, you're seeing it blossom all around you. And the more you're connecting to it, it really does wake up your spirit, mind, and spirit body. This is like an actual thing. This again is a conversation I have in depth over on my Patreon, but to put it simply, there are different parts of your being. There is the physical mind, physical body, mental mind, mental body, physical spirit mind, spirit body. And our spirit mind, spirit body is the part of ourselves that can perceive the spirit realm, perceive events happening, perceive sort of the forces where you're able to realize why things are happening. And the more we wake that part of ourself up, the more we're like conscious and more in control of all of it. So you're setting that intention, you're connecting to it, you're waking it up, which does take time to wake it up. You know, it's a little bit sleepy. But as you do that, as you're sort of just letting it all work itself out and backing up and not feeling like, well, maybe I'll do this as a backup plan and maybe this and what about this? Stop controlling, you're letting go, and you're instead putting that focus into you're already good enough internally, your inner being, giving that light so it shines a little stronger and your conscious is shining a little stronger to give you comfort, to be a part of the process and have more fun with it and essentially get everything you want. So it's like you're about to get everything you want. Here's what you do in order to be in a position of receiving, and here's how to be more comfortable and be aware of the whole process. Who doesn't love that? Anyways, going forward though, when we talk about being in our mind, you'll see that concept repeats again over here and over here in these two different scenarios. In this Queen of Swords in reverse and the Ace of Wands upright, there is actually someone interested in you in November, which is very fun. And this person, and keep in mind, I did ask, oh, what about people who are already taken? This doesn't concern you if you're like in your happy scenario and situation. But for other people who, you know, want this, the thing is, this potential interest can't really grow if you're in the Queen of Swords in reverse mindset, which is someone who's overly critical. But I want to be really clear about this difference compared to the Page of Swords. The Page of Swords just feels, Page of Swords in reverse. Page of Swords in reverse is someone who's like, doesn't feel like they're good enough. Because they're a page, they're a student, and they haven't got far enough in life in the way they wanted to. And so they're kind of overly judgmental of their lack of experience. But with the Queen of Swords, this is someone who is acutely self-aware. So when she is in reverse, she is harsh. She is overly harsh to herself. It's like she's really good at truly picking the worst traits of ourselves, and it's like being overly honest in a negative way and sort of shutting yourself down for it. So it's like it's hard to kind of reason with that version of ourselves or this personality type because they're able to be like, well, this is the truth, isn't it? That's the whole thing of the Queen of Swords. It's all about the truth. But the problem is that's just one truth or one perspective. Many people might view it a totally different way. Like a good example is some people's ideas of beauty are rejected and considered a negative thing in one part of the world and totally celebrated in another. So it isn't the whole truth in reality. So it's about breaking free of that, not being overly critical of yourself, having a certain level of saying, is what I'm saying going to get me any closer to where I want to be? Not really. And you can be honest about that. Or being honest with yourself and saying, I might see this one critical aspect of myself, but I'm going to realize that there are other truths, and I'm going to stop giving that one perspective focus in order to see all these different truths, all these other different perspectives. And if I leave room, enough silence and space in my mind, we talk about that meditation over here, I can then see it. So I might as well give it a chance to possibly be in my focal point. But if you're too in your head, it kind of doesn't allow this the way my spirit guide put it, this spark to become more of a flame. But if you do get out of your head, which you can actively do and practice regularly, something's going to grow here, which we love. But over here, this is where I get really excited. This is a super empowering statement. I love these two cards together. So in the Eight of Swords in reverse, I'm really happy to say my spirit guide said this represents in November, all limitations and obstacles, you becoming free of it. Who doesn't love the sound of that? When you're free of those type of things, you're essentially infinitely able to grow and then build and connect with what you've built emotionally, financially, love-wise, whatever, philosophically. So this is a very big deal. But how is this happening? And what is the connecting key point over here in the Strength card? In the Strength card, there's a part of you that has been kind of suppressing yourself. That's very much the mindset in the Eight of Swords. This is somebody who is feeling obstacles and limitations, but they're the ones sort of creating them, holding themselves back. Well, why would you hold yourself back? In the Strength card, this represents this idea of this beast. Now, sometimes this represents someone else, but in this particular case, this is sort of like your inner power. But you're viewing it as a beast. You're viewing it as something negative, as something you have to control and contain. But there's also subtext here. You're partially admitting to yourself that there's something really powerful inside yourself. Now, because you're overly critical, and you can easily change that in November, you might see things that are actually a positive, and you might be mistaking them for a negative or putting them down without realizing their value. But you suddenly realize it's not negative. It's not something to control. In fact, it's kind of amazing that you are it and letting it go, letting it be released. That part of you that has an opinion, that part of you that says, you know what, I'm feeling amazing. I want to share that I'm actually good at something. That part of yourself that is shining and everyone pays attention to and you don't apologize for it. That part of yourself that explores creative endeavors that maybe you were worried about how they were going to work out and what people would think and going for it. That part of yourself that says, you know, I think that other person's attractive. I'm just not going to worry anymore about rejection or what could be. I'm just going to let them know that I'm into it and not hold that part of myself back anymore and realize that it was meant to. Remember, when we talk about this, we have this beautiful tiger as a representation. They are meant to live in the wild and be free and be out and about and thriving. Let yourself be free and wild and amazing and powerful. I mean, the tiger can climb, the tiger can swim, the tiger can, I think they can see at night, if I'm correct. I mean, they are an incredibly formidable predator. We're not viewing it as a predator, but we're just saying that is a very versatile, amazing creature that you are, essentially. So it's you, through November, being given opportunities. This is how my spirit guide put it. They said there's opportunities that will present itself, and you're essentially going to no longer give in to those limitations and choose a different option. So an example is it's a lot of a moment of tension, breathing, realizing you can do something different, and then choosing it. So an example would be so again, someone attractive is letting you know that they're into you. Instead of tensing up, going, what could be? What if I say the wrong thing? Oh, am I doing it wrong? Should I ask for them? And breathing and going, you know what? I'm going to simplify it. I'm going to do the opposite. Hi, I'm into you too. Yeah, sure. Let's hang out. You know what I'm saying? It's just simplifying the process and being let's do this. I'm not going to worry about the details we talked about over here. I'm going to explore this. And when I feel that sense of again, another example, oh my gosh, I'm not giving my opportunity to speak at work. Everyone's getting all the attention. I guess this is more comfortable to sit back in the background. You know what? No, I have an opinion. And I think it's a good idea and we should do it. And then letting that part of yourself, again, speak it out, observing it, acknowledging when there's a little slight moment, taking that opportunity, and it should feel like a sense of a release, like an exhale of oh wow, I didn't even know I was holding myself back. And as you experience these little things that, again, they're not hiccups or bumps, they're not negative things, but you will see them. And again, because you're connecting internally, you will be able to see them more consciously and be oh, whoa, this is that opportunity we were talking about. And then take a hold of them. You will do it. You will realize there's nothing to be afraid of. You can totally trust yourself. As we were talking over here, you're a very smart and honest person. And in time, that truth that you're able to connect to so easily will be an actual positive thing. And it's the truth is, I am somebody who is infinitely capable and infinitely abundant and infinitely wonderful. And I am realizing that. So therefore, I'm tapped into it and can consciously express it and enjoy it at all times. That's a pretty epic November. I love November for you for that reason. So anyways, please, if you enjoyed this reading as much as I enjoyed reading it, please leave a like, comment, subscribe, hit that notification bell. Helps out my channel like you would not believe. I'm really wishing you the best. I'll see you in the next one. Goodbye.